Usato is your typical lonely high school dork with nothing good going on in his life. On top of that, he's also an ugly, disgusting loser with bad grades, no friends, no girlfriend, just like every other absolute dweeb. He desperately moans to be in a fantasy world to cure his boredom of being an ordinary, pathetic Joe. But one fateful day, he, along with his busty perverted senpai and her loyal dog, gets teleported to another world, where they meet the good-for-nothing king, repeating the same lame story about a useless demon king who always gets resurrected, just to get defeated again, and they're summoned as heroes to fight him. But before our dorky protagonist can get his below-average hopes up, he's suddenly told bad news like being summoned by accident, just to become just a simple healer, like this guy. But just like this guy, little did they know that he'd come out to be even stronger than the legendary heroes by using healing power the wrong way. Hi, I'm Mr. Virgo and welcome to my channel Eeny Tales Recap. Today we'll recap the anime called The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. If you like these types of shows and want me to keep bringing such anime recaps every week, leave a like and comment to let me know. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as it helps me a lot and keeps me motivated to make more anime recaps. So without further ado, let's start the recap. The story begins as the popular kids at school make their cliché walk through the hallways as the typical everyone gossips about them. Suzune is the student council president's superstar, while the certified nerd named Kazuki is her little sidekick who's also the vice president. Some people just turn out to be the center of attention, but our below-average dork of a protagonist doesn't consider himself one of these people. His name is Usato and he's the self-hating guy who just thinks of himself as a forgettable run-of-the-mill high school student. The most exciting adventure in this dude's vanilla-flavored life is returning some dumb pigeon babies to their nest. Deep down though, Usato is always hoping for an extraordinary life. Though luckily for him, he is the protagonist of this anime. One usual day, someone steals his umbrella while it is raining and his evil side starts to show itself for a second as he contemplates taking someone else's. But this typical good guy decides against it, fearing the beginning of a life of crime over a $5 umbrella. This proves to be a pretty stupid decision though, as he ends up waiting for hours. Just when the usual cliché scene happens, as Suzune appears out of nowhere and explains that all students are required to leave. This guy really is forgettable as he decides to just run home in the rain, but Suzune stops him. It would look bad for the student council to just watch him get soaked in the rain like a loser. Suddenly, Vice President Kazuki appears, the typical perfect dude, and claims that he will let Usato have his spare. Suzune asks if they're friends, but Kazuki replies they're classmates. Usato is confused because he thought that Kazuki didn't even know of his useless existence, as they had never spoken before, but realizes that he's one of the typical disgusting Mr. Nice guys. Usato thanks him for the umbrella, and Kazuki asks what they should call him. Suzune steps in the middle of them, telling him she will also call him Usato. Our pathetic loser blushes, thinking she's trying to flirt with him. They offer to all walk home together and Suzune points out that it must be fate that they met. Usato's nerdy mind goes right to video games as he thinks of this moment as suddenly getting the chance to walk with the cool kids at some dumb school event. He almost ruins this marvelous moment as he says that everyone in school will be jealous, but luckily they didn't hear his utterly embarrassing comment. On their little walk, Usato tells Kazuki that he didn't expect him to be so nice because he only ever sees this playboy rizzing up the ladies. He says that he only talks to the girls out of pity, but Suzune roasts him that he prefers boys and likes to do more than just talk to them.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the f?
Our boy obviously doesn't swing his thing the other way, so he shifts to Suzune, who is even more out of his league as he's the Mr. Shy protagonist. Suzune is also the top of her class in all subjects and great at all sports and glazes her up even more, as he points out that she's also beautiful both inside and out.
What do you mean by that?
Usato, acting like some kind of dumb gossip news reporter, finally comes out and asks if they are dating, since everyone at school talks about it. The walk gets pretty awkward, but they explain that they only spend so much time together because they are on the student council. Usato apologizes for the incredibly stupid question that he definitely should not have asked, but Suzune doesn't mind since it's better than talking behind their back. Their incredibly snooze-inducing conversation continues as the three then talk about what they will do when they graduate. None of these dummies has a plan yet though. Suzune is already a third year, but she has a huge problem. She still hasn't gone culture with anyone yet, so she's looking for someone that has a lot of potential.
Yeah, boy, ow, me.
She talks about how she can immediately complete any goal she sets for herself, seemingly foreshadowing what's about to happen. Susanne explains that she feels like she doesn't belong in this world, and Usato is shocked. But before our virgin protagonist could ask her out to go dungeon exploring with him, they all stopped when the two student council members heard some bells ringing. The ringing gets louder and louder, but Usato, being deaf in one of his ears, doesn't hear a single thing. Just as Usato approaches the others, a magic circle appears on the ground, and he wonders if it's a gate to another world. Instead of being terrified, Susanne looks like a thirsty bitch and wonders they will find magic, monsters, and heroes with unlimited potential in the other world. Usato is shocked that she can still think about something like that even at a time like this, but their time is up and they are taken away. Usato eventually wakes up and finds that they are sitting in front of a king. The boys are rightfully terrified and cautious, but something is wrong with Susanne's brain, as she only feels excitement. King Jerkwad has a similar name, as he introduces himself as Lloyd from this world, not the Lloyd from Spy X Family.
失礼。伺いましたもので。
Kazuki wants to skip the introductions though, and demands to know why Lloyd brought them there. Lloyd keeps his typical angry bird guard from slicing his body into pieces for his disrespect and reveals that he is king as if that wasn't painfully obvious already. The kids are still shocked by this, except for Susanne, who is moaning from having the wildest fantasies of her life. Lloyd then reveals that they were summoned to be heroes, making all of Susanne's dreams come true. 2 years ago, this world was attacked by the King of Demons and his army. They managed to drive them off, but the Demon Lord's power has been growing. As a last resort, they called forth accomplished individuals from another world who can confront a demon lord using a so-called forbidden ritual that every isekai anime uses, like condoms, known as the hero summoning. Usato tries to remind the excited Susanne that they are having a serious conversation, while Kazuki goes all crazy, as he doesn't care about heroes or demon lords and is just furious that they were summoned without consent. He refuses to be Isekai'd since he is not the protagonist, and demands that they get sent back to their world. Unfortunately for this side character, the hero summoning only works in one direction, so they can't go back. Kazuki still wants to go back to rizzing up all the ladies back home, but the king apologizes by saying that he can still rizz up beast girls like Roxanne. Kazuki's whining marathon pushes the guards to finally quiet him down by threatening to turn him from a side character to a non-existent one. Usato calms the angry bird down, and the king shockingly bows before them. He promises to find them a way back eventually, but begs that these heroes help him in the meantime. Susanne finally stops moaning and wonders why the king calls them heroes without knowing anything about them. Some little four-eyed named Welchie explains that the hero summoning is designed to select accomplished individuals. She explains that hearing the bells ring before being summoned indicates that they are heroes. That's actually some pretty bad news for our boy Usato though, as he was the only one that didn't hear ringing, and he wonders if he was brought by accident. Welchie then takes him to a crystal ball that measures their magical abilities. Kazuki wonders if Usato's really okay with this, but our boy's just fine, since Welchie told him that he might be able to use magic even though he isn't a hero. Kazuki thinks Usato should be more upset, but our boy isn't a whiny little dweeb like him, and he points out that they should try to be like the overly aroused Susanne. She is the first to be tested, and the color of the crystal indicates her affinity for thunder magic. As if that weren't amazing enough, she also has a ton of mana. Susanne couldn't be any happier, and it is now Kazuki's turn. This guy barely touches the thing, and Welchie is amazed when the crystal turns white. It's light magic, and Susanne is certain that it means he can shoot laser beams out of his eyes like Superman, or even better, he might be able to use swords made of light. Usato points out that Kazuki isn't as thirsty as her and probably has no clue what she is talking about, but she scolds him for having a sharp tongue. Susanne realizes that she likes his tongue that way, and Usato's perfect image of Susanne is getting ruined every time she talks. Welchie explains that light magic is incredibly rare and few people can use it. Light repels evil, so its power is unparalleled against demons. The bar has been set pretty high by the first two, but now it's our protagonist's turn. Usato hopes that he will at least have the tiniest bit of power, as this humble kid just hopes to help Susanne and Kazuki in any way he can. He is glad when his crystal actually changes color, and everyone thinks it's a soothing color. A look at Welchi though paints a totally different picture, as she is shocked by this color change and instantly drags Usato away without saying a single thing. Welchi urgently takes him to the king and explains that the other two have great abilities, however she is there about something more important. The king has a good chuckle as he jokes about Usato having an affinity for dark magic, but this doofus is shut up when Welchi reveals that the crystal ball turned green. The guards are even shocked and Welchi begins to finally say what that means. King Lloyd stops her though as he doesn't even want her to utter those words, and Usato begins to wonder if his magic affinity is really that bad. Our boy just has to remain confused though as the king quickly demands that Usato be taken away from the castle as quickly as possible. They try to think of the safest place to send him and Usato wonders if he's really that dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic and there just so happens to be another person. It's a certain girl, but the king doesn't even want her name to be spoken. Unfortunately for King Coward, this girl barges in. Everyone is terrified beyond belief while we're surprised that this certain girl was actually a hot MILF. Her name is Rose and she wants to know if the heroes have been summoned. The king was really hoping that she would take the day off, but Rose would never do such a thing. She questions if Usato is a hero, but King Lloyd explains that he's just some nerd that got teleported there by accident. This guy desperately tries to hide the truth and tells her that Usato is super ordinary. Rose introduces herself to Usato as the captain of the kingdom's rescue team, but our boy feels that this psycho hot chick is more like the type to take lives, not save them. Welchi might be a genius because she diffuses the situation and offers to take Rose to the real heroes in the crystal room. Unfortunately, Usato is being an idiot who can't read the room and asks the king what his green-colored crystal means. Roses fill in hearing distance, so everyone is terrified by what's about to happen. Usato confirms that his ball is green, and Rose tells the king that she will be borrowing the boy. The king decides that he must act quickly and urgently tells Welchi to get Usato away from her. Welchi uses some kind of bubble magic to quickly get him out of there, but Rose instantly takes off after him. Welchi sends our non-hero sky high, but Rose is able to get to him almost immediately. She is crazy powerful as she destroys the bubble and rapidly captures Usato. Everyone is left with their mouths open from shock like a bunch of guppy fish, and Rose tells the king that she will turn the boy into a full-fledged healing magic user. Welchi can't handle what will happen moving forward, so she faints, and the king begs Rose to stop. He knows that she has been searching for other healing magic users, but he tries to explain that Usato was really dragged into this by accident. His useless words go completely ignored as the two are already gone. Back in the castle, Usato's useless new friends have just been sitting on their stupid hands this entire time, but are shocked to hear that Usato was taken away. Welchi explains that his life is not going to be ended, but it's still really bad news. He was taken to the rescue team just beyond the castle town. Healing magic users are extremely rare, and the crazy lady that took him is one of them. She intends to train Usato as her subordinate. No matter how hard Suzune uses her culture brain, she can't see how this is a problem. Luckily, Welchi explains it to her like she is a toddler and reveals that Rose's training methods are extremely unorthodox. At her base, Rose explains that Usato only has the potential to become a healing magic user, so that is why she brought him to the rescue team. This will be his home, and she calls on her boys. Usato is terrified by these weirdos, and Rose tells them that they will be looking after him. She tells them to play nice, but these guys look like lunatics and introduce themselves. Usato fears the worst in every possible situation, as he wonders if he's actually some kind of offering, and he is being sacrificed to these monsters. Rose tells them not to scare Usato, but she is the most terrifying of all. The fat boy tries to explain that this is them being nice, but Usato doesn't think these brutes know what being nice means. Rose explains that while these meatheads are her subordinates, they are not healing magic users. There are 2 other healing magic users on the rescue team, but they usually work elsewhere. It's time to get to business, so Rose explains that she will beat the knowledge on how to use healing magic deep into his tiny little brain. Usato seems to be in a permanent state of disbelief as every fiber of his being is telling him to stay away from this insane but hot chick. Usato uses his Sunday morning church voice to ask if he could learn from another teacher, but Rose ignores the nerd and tells him that training starts tomorrow. She tells the bald brute named Tong to let Usato stay in his room and instructs them to eat dinner before getting rest. These guys hit Usato with the brutal reality once she leaves as they tell him that he is screwed. Rose will be training him herself and she's going to put him through hell. They say hell might be the least of his worries and had a good laugh at our non-hero's expense. That night, Usato wonders what will happen to him, but he finally shows a bit of optimism as he is certain that things will be okay. He might be wrong, as we see that not even Rose knows what will happen. But that's where the first episode of this anime comes to a close. Thanks for watching, and also do mention in the comment section if there is anything that I should be improving on my channel. See you all in the next recap. Goodbyes until then.